I'd moved into my little slice of heaven in this suburban neighborhood months ago, expecting peace, quiet, and the standard joys of home ownership. What I didn't anticipate was the HOA. Now, every community has one, but this one was a real piece of work, led by none other than Karen. Let's call her Karen Klein. I was excited about my new home, a cozy 3-bedroom with a garage just perfect for my 2 Rottweilers, Zeus and Apollo. They were more than pets, they were family. Strong, loyal, and sometimes a little too protective of their dad. I loved them dearly, and they loved me, so much so that they'd bark at anything resembling a threat, which apparently included people who decided my garage was a communal sanctuary. Once or twice I could ignore it. The first sighting left me baffled. I returned from a long day at work, and there she was, Karen, stretched out in my garage, one leg draped over an empty picnic cooler, waiting for her friends to arrive. I rubbed my eyes, thinking there was surely some kind of mistake. "Excuse me," I said, the bemusement creeping into my voice. "What are you doing in my garage?" She lifted her sunglasses off her eyes, pretending to adjust her sun hat as if nothing was wrong. "Oh, sweetie, I thought this was a great little hangout spot. We're just having some fun." "Yeah, no," I replied, shaking my head. "This is private property. You can't just—" "Oh, please. It's just a garage. You should be happy that people like me want to spend time here," she said, waving her hand dismissively. After a few more attempts to get her to leave, none of which she heard, of course, I called the police. That's when things got surreal. They did show up, but once they heard she was part of the HOA, things shifted. "We can't really do anything. It's not like she's breaking any laws," the officer said, scratching the back of his head. I could feel frustration burning deep in my chest. "Thanks for your help," I managed to spit out, watching as they dismissed her with a friendly wave. Even after making a complaint to the HOA, Karen just upped her game. Every weekend, I'd find her in there again, holding little meetings with her fellow HOA members, drinking Chardonnay and gossiping about the neighborhood. I watched from my window in disbelief as they shrieked and laughed, pointing fingers toward my well-kept lawn. My tolerance was wearing thin. One day, I returned from the grocery store to find she had set up a complete picnic in my garage, a full spread of sandwiches, chips, and her Karen friends lounging on my tools. The utter audacity of it made my blood boil. "Karen, you can't keep doing this," I shouted, trying to keep my composure. "Relax. It's just a garage," she shot back, the usual smugness plastered on her face. This was it. I couldn't let this continue. With all my frustration piling on top of one another, an idea struck me, a prank. Sweet, sweet karma was what I needed. I turned to my trusted allies, Zeus and Apollo. Realizing that my dogs had all the instincts to help me instill a little fear in our uninvited guest made me grin. I started planning the perfect prank. I knew from years of experience that an angry Rottweiler would keep anyone at a distance. I waited for a Saturday when I knew Karen usually hung out in my garage during the day. I devised a simple plan. I would let Zeus and Apollo stay inside my house while Karen decided to take her regular nap in my garage. I'd lock the garage door, leaving her isolated and startled when she woke up, hopefully with the dogs there to greet her. As I prepared the scene, I can't tell you how much delight I felt. Saturday arrived, and I swiped my keys to the garage, letting Zeus and Apollo get comfy while I discreetly watched through my living room window. I hoped the time was right as I saw Karen's car pull up. She waltzed in and began her routine, tossing her flip-flops off, sipping on her drink, and chatting with a friend on the phone. In a matter of minutes, her eyes fluttered shut, and I knew it was time. I crept out, quiet as a mouse, and locked the garage door. I took a deep breath, my heart racing with anticipation. After a few moments, I returned to my window, peering in through the glass. I watched for what felt like hours as she drifted between sleep and consciousness. And just as I thought I had miscalculated, she suddenly jolted awake. The moment she opened her eyes, I could see the confusion wash over her face. But what really sent the shockwave through her body was that both of my Rottweilers were now standing inches from her, sniffing her wildly. Let me tell you, Karen's fear was palpable. She screamed at the top of her lungs, practically launching herself backward. My dogs, protective and curious, merely tilted their heads in confused inquiry. Karen, suddenly overwhelmed by the presence of my two enormous Rottweilers, slipped into a panic I had only seen in movies. Her little picnic lay scattered as she scrambled toward the locked door, terror in her eyes. "Let me out! Let me out!" she shrieked, banging on the garage door in a frenzy. I couldn't contain my laughter, but I knew I needed to intervene before this went too far. A few moments later, I could see her chest heaving, and before I could even step in to unlock the door for her, she fainted, collapsing onto the ground. When Karen came to, it was no less than chaos. Her friends were now outside, confused at what had happened. Amidst the rumble, I called the police again, while a crowd of neighbors started to gather, drawn in by the shrieking and commotion. To my surprise, as the officers arrived, they did not echo their previous dismissals. I explained everything: the trespassing, the nuisances, and most importantly, how she had now terrified herself by sneaking into my garage uninvited. They examined the situation. Karen, who was coming back to life, was so blinded by anger that she didn't even see the lengths to which she had now led herself. In a moment of pride, one officer began citing her for trespassing and public disorder. It was glorious. I had a front-row seat to watch as she began to realize that all those entitlement trips she'd taken in my garage had led to her downfall. "Wait! I'm going to sue you for this!" she shouted at me, even as the officers cuffed her. "Oh, I'm quaking in my boots," I said dryly, rolling my eyes. After that incident, the HOA fell apart. Karen's reputation was tarnished, and I received an unexpected amount of support from my neighbors. The tables turned, and the people who once followed her blindly began distancing themselves. I spent more time with Zeus and Apollo, enjoying my home and peace. The next week, Karen was indeed booked in jail for a weekend, a much-deserved stay for someone who clearly didn't know the bounds of respect, privacy, and humanity. I was finally able to enjoy my garage again, and I made sure to fill it with every good memory I could imagine, from family barbecues to lazy afternoons lounging with my two faithful companions, knowing that karma had served justice in splendid fashion. No more Karens in my garage. Just me, my dogs, and my quiet sanctuary, exactly the way it was meant to be. What transpired that day stuck with me long after, a reminder of how quickly circumstances can change when one chooses disrespect over courtesy. It taught me the important balance of standing up for oneself while learning to laugh at the absurdities of life. In a world where many choose to look past the small acts of injustice, I found solace in knowing I had stood my ground. In some twisted sense of justice, Karen's actions had become the catalyst for not just my enjoyment of life, but a community reminder of what happens when entitlement goes unchecked. Perhaps now she'll finally take responsibility and learn the essence of community, respect, and for once, put her energy toward kindness instead of chaos. One can only hope. The dust has finally settled after the wild events that unfolded with Karen Klein in my garage. It's been a few weeks since the fiasco, and I wanted to share how things have changed, not only for me but also for the entire neighborhood. Following her unfortunate attempt to commandeer my garage as a community lounge, Karen got a taste of the consequences for her actions. The local police reported that her rather dramatic fainting episode led to her being booked for trespassing and disorderly conduct. I learned from the officers that she spent a weekend in jail, giving her ample time to reflect on her entitlement. Surprisingly, it also sparked a wave of awareness among the residents, many of whom reached out to me to express their support. The fallout was palpable. Karen's reputation quickly unraveled, and her once untouchable status within the HOA faded like a summer sunset. I couldn't help but chuckle as I witnessed her decline. People who had once followed her lead began to question her leadership. With the whispers of her antics spreading, many homeowners were quick to reassess their loyalties. In the days following the incident, I began receiving unexpected visits from neighbors. They'd pop by to chat or bring over baked goods, all eager to share their stories of dealing with Karen's antics. It turned out that she had gotten on everyone's nerves at some point, whether by enforcing ridiculous rules or trying to impose her will on community projects. The entire neighborhood realized that standing together against one person's misguided sense of entitlement felt exhilarating. As for me, I took it as an opportunity to foster better relationships with my neighbors. I hosted a barbecue in my backyard, inviting everyone to bring their favorite dishes. Zeus and Apollo were the real stars of the event, showcasing their playful personalities and winning everyone over as they pranced around, soaking up all the attention. People shared hearty laughter and bonding moments as we swapped stories of community life. The support from my neighbors was heartwarming. Many expressed their apologies for not standing up sooner. It seemed Karen had turned us all into reluctant allies, reminding us of the importance of unity and respect in our community. In an ironic twist, notice came from the HOA about a meeting to discuss future regulations ensuring that garages would remain designated spaces for their owners only. I couldn't help but smile at the poetic justice of it all. Now life is blissfully quiet. Karen still lingers on the edges of our community, but her attempts at re-establishing her authority have fallen flat. While she continues to sulk, I savor my peaceful evenings and the bonds I've formed with my neighbors. Sometimes, confrontations can lead to unexpected growth and friendship, and I wouldn't trade the newfound sense of community for anything. With Zeus and Apollo by my side, I look forward to long, uninterrupted days of camaraderie, respect, and joyful living, just the way it should be.